Dear President Obama, as our first founding black father of America, you and everyone else missed how our founding parents had their identities stolen in our faces. And that was measured because of why they had all that tied to what, why, and how. They had to hide their real roles with the method slash S of, trying to become a country that couldn't be on the Constitution unabridged, as it was only capable of staying collusion to all locations, areas, and states. We know, recorded, having confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, having pretended other, and simultaneously been known criminally foreign influenced, and or delusions wrought, and as rules, crimes, predators, and as victims that were only capable of blaming other things, others themselves, for responses to negative fact treatment natures and identity treatment natures. So this is one of the reasons why and how that we have to address the method that has nothing to do with any of the laws it put in, just like a person has to pretend other motivations for their actions in relationship to fact treatment nature oriented predicate acts and questions and investigations themselves, investigators themselves, how they were used remotely. The branches of government individually grouped in together as syntax nature, as quality, as fact treatment nature. See, we have to address how those colors together are employed here against Native Americans. With their resistance led to the phenomena of our founding parents being able to come to a union capable of counter-extorting through that which was all identity of the ground extortion roles by the identity of breaching method, predicate acts delivery system method. I'm not even a lawyer. The lawyers we know are recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, having been criminally foreign influenced, evidence reception, racketeering natures, and pretending other simultaneously. That's also evidence. And with delusions, but as rules, crimes, predators, no using time simultaneously too fast, too slow. So everyone misses, for example, our first founding black father of America even misses. Like when he says we should go into communities and speak things, they have roles forced with everyone, blaming on other things, others themselves. For example, when the identities of interbranch are rude to and lie about and with other people, up other people's names, and simultaneously backwards towards the police. These are names, identities, titles that they knew we need to use. Where and how they make people use lies as truths or truth as lies, same thing. They make you refer to its sequence first as truths. For example, because they don't. In other words, they see, is this true or not? And they do it real fast. Things are either true or not. They have a sequence shifts that are shared common, where and how they have all kinds of motivations, known and unknown, juxtaposed, formally and informal, on the records, known and known, unknown or unknown, and unfathomed. Because even the branches of government, for example, originally still when they were having witch trials, there were reactions and reaction natures that the breaching nature knew that would go back and blame other things, others themselves, even when they were blaming correctly why they were reacting the way they were with things. They left out a lot. They probably, so, and then they knew that this would be records that they could maintain self-value and maintain to use to measure anyone capable of using correlation nature. Because real science, to speak one time, has all the answers. They're basic. They're simple truths that come with revelations. Because the nature, they're truths that are true always, and they're truths not used as lies. Slavery is about a predicate acts delivery system method, a series of databases laws, leveraged against every single standing identity of the ground location, including even the identities of industries and of the names of species, of the existence of species. And this had been sustained against Native Americans by people involved with database relationships that couldn't defend themselves and afford told truth what was being done to Native Americans, which is separating them from the time and quality of education and infrastructural security to remember the education that the ancients had revealed for them before sciences became tactically, criminally foreign influenced. And the causes of that blamed on other things, others themselves even more incorrectly. A theater was drawn in there, an archetypal nature of criminal insidiousness and of criminal insidious nature. Note natures like wrongdoers and wrongdoing. Those are phrases associated with criminal enterprises and the countering of them. Originally and still, like the witch trials, having been itself employed, counters to things being and having been employed by what is and who is really rolls with it. And that's including all who that were known on paper. Everyone's roles are other because of how this is a method from off the campus is connected, including remote uses of different private schools with inclusion with the on-off campuses public schools uses, because they also have uses of people pretending opinions and convictions through context that make subjects treatments that are tactically separated, that are roles and natures and needs that are increasingly needed to prevent short words, and while pretending others simultaneously, prevent uses of sequence true, prevent correlation from being a subject. Correlation uses different subjects and uses what can be discerned simultaneously. But you have to be able to establish. That's what you're talking about. People offensively pretend they don't understand people when they're trying to show, in other words, for example, Wethersfield town offices and corruption with the uses of it, the Wethersfield town offices, is one subject. Corruption of New Britain Superior Court, online and on the location, distinctly now, and with the news media, as one subject. But together there are two subjects because they also have grouped uses of that. So this is also with locations, because there was also a breaching method with uses of it. And there was also roles of the breaching method that does what it does through, including criminally legalized, criminal insidiousness natures of branches of government, every identity of title. There are simultaneously positive and negative treatments, identity treatments that can't defend themselves and us at the same time. So why and how more people statistically, for example, they have these statistics and the truth used as a lie, and the lie used as a truth for why statistically more black people are hurt by the crazy laws that were here. And they separate slavery from the rest of the laws because they don't want everyone to see using correlation, and correlation is actually inherent, active, and progressive means actually what was standing and being and having been sustained. And for what? Because they knew they would have people that have to hurt simultaneously, inherent, active, and progressive means of each age of correlation nature in relationship to their positive and negative treatments, relationship to their identity treatments, relationship to their time treatments, relationship to their value treatments. Value has a direct relationship to our identity of volumes, identity of relationship to itself, and the value of that distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously. That's from boxing my nose. I had a whole bunch of fights in USA boxing, and I would like to turn professional, but I need to. But the Connecticut boxing gyms, so people are victims. I wouldn't try to approach them. I like to just keep it simple. I don't know people. I minded my own business. See, there are people in life. If you mind your, we're going to change the phenomena that doesn't have to be. But I minded my own business. And there's a pattern between people who didn't mind their own business, who are involved with a whole bunch of other countries in the interbranch, differentially, criminally foreign influence constantly, which is what, and they prevent equality of fact, cheaping nature offensively, blaming other things, others, and themselves, which is, ourselves. Fabricating audio and video with delusions and as rules crimes predators originally instilled, increasingly self-valuing all identity ground locations, but having been all kind of naive things, stayed manifest, stayed self-valued by and more motivation to blame the other thing. So we have to have the business and means to know where income is going to come from, value, amended with, value liberation conversation, which is identity liberation conversation. It is clear as day where and how where and how they're using black identities in collusion with the branches of government individually grouped together, how maintain differentially criminally foreign influence. So they self-value how the agencies themselves are recorded indistinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously criminally foreign influenced. Now, and roles with uses self-valued recorded of identity ground locations, like all from Wethersfield, all along Church Street, people associated with the corners on Church Street in Old Wethersfield, and on off, locations from to the corner of there and Main Street. Main Street, note where George Washington had to come to leave slavery entrenched. And now rather than have that explained, they measure that not understood. And note where they're simultaneously measuring people's intelligence. Note as families and people associated with identity, the ground locations associated with that. From off campuses, recorded through time consciously on off campuses, roles with predicate acts, and with wrongdoing, and with sequence shifts, and with identity thefts and frauds, attaching little kids and their family members to fake locations, areas, states, exploiting exceptions and exception nature of the law, because they've also been getting away with it because judges and their family members have been involved with the locations used where and how this was sophistication here before them. They have been using police equipment, interbranch and interagencies, and narratives regarding that. Fake conversations with me about police equipment, about my father, about families, about, and these are people involved before the people involved with pension thefts and stuff like that. Before that was found out, they were involved with a whole bunch of natures of, one of the things that was commonly is styles of identity theft, fraud instances as strangers, who then pretend such means they're not strangers. Now, courts do this every day, and especially when they have people come before them more than one time. Also, because of all the rules. See, so we have overt criminal enterprises and have private ones with our branches of government and with their patients and killers and innocent people, including the patients and killers, they also use to hide their own lives, and roles with uses of the same identity ground locations before that, during that time when they're involved with bodies going into the ground, real or made up. These people are also recorded and involved with timed instances that were in collusion with people on and off the state of Connecticut judicial branch offices. Where black is speaking for black, it is clear as day. Being, in other words, part of where they prevent people from knowing the names of others, and each location sickly distinctly. And this is with each memory, and this is where they're exploiting syntax phenomenon, where they adapt to where they're in their youngest grades. They make treatments of positive and negative that are simultaneously communicating other than they're simultaneously pretending and having pretended for them into records. For example, why they do and use, we're going to put this person in earmuffs. They're lying about what came up before that. They have their kids involved with predicate acts of other natures mixed with their motivations for that through time and uses of it, because they know this person is going to be in this classroom, and then they're going to walk here after class, and this is what they're going to get here at this time. These people are already going to be there, and they're keeping locked in what really was most motivating roles and exploiting roles with the overt criminal enterprises, private ones, killers, medicines and drugs crimes, have more to do with the roles with the predicate acts on off the campuses and database relationships simultaneously, which also recorded it ties to the syntax and identity thefts and frauds instances roles that the killers and a serial killer and the people associated with the body dumping spots. In other words, even unrelated, no one wants anything to do with killing. Big world, small world, everyone speaking through others. There is uses of that per a method that prevents people from countering identity thefts and frauds, where they employ already collusion with its uses of the ground locations, all programs with the kids. So there are people that were involved with the Cub Scouts, and then you have to pretend to be against such. These are also people why and how they have differential roles with forced abuses of different natures and methods and uses of them with motivations known but not known. For example, with I believe is a Mr. Hansen, they have people that go to pick up a young girl, and then they arrest them, and then they defend that note. Then they defend their premises treatments, blaming other things on others themselves for the real causes. Not knowing, theorizing, and with delusions, but also has roles with rules, crimes, predators, with the news media, has roles with their patients and criminals. Of the interbranch, they've also been fabricating audio and video with as styles of identity thefts and frauds that then pretend they don't understand people when we say fix the fake news. You attach me and others to fake conversations a whole bunch of ways. Washington, D.C. They want me to explain it on YouTube or on Facebook because they do have laws where they can pretend other. But they're exploiting exceptions. They're not supposed to make things up and further criminally foreign influence uses of cases and of instances that lead up to cases, because they're needed to pretend fake things into records in other cases before they come up. And after, they have to hide life progressions. You don't have someone that spoke for the identity of the law, Americans, modern nations. See suits and ties, see them with nuclear weapons and what values afford. See them how when they bring up wealth, but they don't bring up how hundreds of nations are leveraged against us in this trap. I mean, that has all these engines, but can't afford to build way better than what was designed to cause negative value nature progressions, acts in natures consciously by the breaching method, identity thefts and frauds against our founders. It was worse than that because it was also a measuring method. Who's but in other words, them employing roles on off campuses of all ages and natures. Different they employ the differences to get over on difference, which is the nature and demonstration of it, having been employed by itself to keep what it's causing and having caused needed to be responded to by fact-shaping natures, blaming on other things other than themselves, while pretending to be able to speak for positives, science, /S properly. I tell it best, vaccines. So we have to be able to allow someone to speak about how the intercultural narratives and possessions of all natures of campuses are preventing real science and truth. And they're by forcing, no one cares about democracy first. What people care about first is that we have mandated law followed. And not fake, on time, when we're young kids. They prevent that per their methods where there are, for example, 3 identities of possession over the kids this way, where they're going to walk individually grouped and together that are off the record. They're maintained, motivated by and realized needed by the individuals involved with the schools because of their roles having been forced, tricked, hurt, persuaded, taken as laws and worse, to roles with predicate acts, with databases and with uses of locations where they film things and make or call things and have conversations with investigators and as investigators and people associated with database relationships and the killings, other natures of illusions where they all self-value roles together. It's where like sequence shifts, illusions, where they self-value time treatments always too fast, too slow. Oh, thank God. The court and the victims as the defendants, as predators, victim predators. And complete innocence, they're also attaching they're hiding their life progressions. So I don't know Sergio Bajerio. He sought me out to confess to demonstrate other when I was a kid. He's involved with people associated with Wethersfield Heights and with on off the all sides of the community center in Wethersfield with other people I don't know the names of, but we could get the names of them. And they know my name. And they're involved with their doctors, like a Leahy family, and nurses associated with them, and involved with Wethersfield police, and with people who answer the phones for them through time with various natures of drugs and medicines crimes, and roles with uses of that as their roles with predicate acts on my street. Also with Officer Jerry Miller, also recorded, confessed, and demonstrated, involved with threats regarding and confessions regarding people associated with New Britain Superior Court and Hartford courts that have roles with overt criminal enterprises, and with New Britain Superior Court judges and Hartford Court's judges that speak fake things into databases with them, and with doctors associated with them, and with their patients and criminals, and with their roles with the uses of that where it's sustained, where they pretend they're investigating stuff while they're just looking to ways to further self-value and exploit all the fake things they put in databases. And differentially, in case that gets caught, in other words, their identity of volumes are exploited. I don't know the Soto family at all. They're one of the ones at the end of the three people at the end of the three places at the end of the Berlin Turnpike involved with Phil Cololo and people with FBI in New Haven and interstates, and with my town's police chief and people with three spots at the end of the, also with state police families and Weathersfield police families and fire departments and their extended families involved with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and databases, in the databases oriented predicate acts roles with the narratives as the people in the backgrounds. These are also people that call police forms. They have communications with little kids that communicate with other little kids they don't even know. They're influenced to do so. For example, too, to pretend they knew them before that. All exceptions, exception nature that appear to be demonstrate other are really in demonstration of the same thing. In other words, this is a method of maintaining all identity of the ground locations, collusion, with illusions they kept and keep needed hid by each age of fact treatment nature's names for reasons and relative to the quality of fact treatment nature forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded, while others pretended. They're recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. They're preventing truth about black and white with the youngest kids' grades, while they're timing little tricks so they could make little fights or debates about the responses of it. And they could lie about it while they're stacking fake things in there too. Plus, what's actually recorded is remote uses of every individual grouped in together, self-valued too, of everybody regarding their roles with recorded, forging names, switching all kinds of evidence reception racketeering, that KKK themed, Confederate flag themed. This is not because I'm thinking, oh, this is righteous, that's wrong. I'm not making opinions about those things. Gerrymandering, I'm not classifying something. I'm talking about the predicate acts, delivery system method. I'm talking about where and how Congress doesn't have the sanity or the real patriotism at all to be able to not have the filibuster. All they need, all we need is something that's so good because it's real. All we have to do is admit what is real, and it shows, the science shows, that all locations are tactically denatured. And that the ones most tactically leveraged against by this breaching method. Everyone blaming other things. Everyone painted themselves in corners, not by mistake. CT must break. Build wall. For CT must be the cherry tree. So George Washington cannot tell any lies. He chopped down what he had to use. We got the French general to agree to help us with, which is the counter extortion. George Washington said with James Madison's plan. So this is communicated. The Constitution should be unabridged. That means he was against slavery. And so he cannot tell a lie. But he had to lie because they had to hide their real motivations. Because those motivations were measured by a breaching method. And while it was measuring that, it was maintaining everyone blaming other things other than themselves. That's how it measured it. Because now it has complete possessions of the sense and sensibilities of people. And everyone's lying about emotion. We have to address how the courts and the police forms with the other countries and with the overt criminal enterprises and the private ones are recorded involved with the placement uses of the placements in classrooms, uses of the timed locations, and what unfolds where their people walk to class to lunch, not just one or the other, and all together, because uses of that were involved, having been employed for World Trade Center attack roles, Weathersfield interbranch, intercampuses, and intra-campuses, and intercampus, each one, and intra-campus, each one, sickly distinctly, too, but also sickly non-distinctly. And that's why it's so important that everyone realizes how such is not discerned, not one has learned. There's a method that prevents people from knowing names, and or you could start getting the name and start going into parts of it. And now you're making fact treatments and positive negative treatments, and you're using other people's names through others. You have to use what you heard. There's complete possession over that by the people that are with the hate groups, black and white, only allowed to be fathomable titles and overt criminal enterprises and killers and people like that, all recorded and involved with their motivation. Even if they don't know them, the locations they're involved with. They're involved with a pattern of people that sought me out because of people that weren't with their location, involved with offensive evidence reception racketeering methods. We have to observe in relationship to this. So in other words, there are men and women with Trinity College and who are also recorded, confessed, and demonstrated having been involved with CCSU, and people associated with former director of the FBI, and with proven federal criminals, in other cases, like involved with pension thefts and stuff like that. But they were also recorded, confessed, and demonstrated with their family members involved with predicate acts and identity thefts and frauds against me and my family when I was a kid. They use time when you're going to walk around a corner, and timed with different subjects, note, that also have a connection, other teachers and things like that. You don't know the name of it because you're not, instances nonverbal. Like a guy who grabbed my wrist has something to do with the computers and the policing over the internet, and with people involved with the Southstein Middle School, recorded, confessed, and demonstrated with various natures of courts, involved with locations next to confirmed also, and then pretending others also recorded simultaneously. See how everyone's getting over on simultaneous is recorded what most furthers the overt criminal enterprises, because then that uses them remotely. They have to hide that now. They have to pretend other motivations, natures, needs, and interests were their roles with that. And they're doing so with delusions, and as rules, crimes, predators, and sequence shifting, lying what came before that, and falsified police reports roles, also used for identity thefts and frauds, with people that they pretended us to fake locations with in the past. All exception nature and demonstration of the same thing. Boxing. So, in other words, there is what says has to entertain itself as the majority of Republicans, and what has to entertain itself as the majority of Democrats, because of the method, because of the identity of possession over opinions and convictions that are also lied to by people pretending others are lying And see, so they're increasingly valuing what is intercampuses connected on and off the youngest grades into little instances and uses of little tools, little methods of interacting with kids through jobs. Quote, train, unquote, to use those instances and methods. See, we have people that can't think because they don't understand the five identities of sequence / simultaneous nature. If you want it. This is science first and then theory. So they put theory first and then science. Identity has a semi-nature relationship to its complete self. For example, all the identities of your body have a semi-nature relationship to your complete identity. Only the extent of it is debatable. See, but we have what is debated offensively. And then they have people making allegations against the people. So when individuals and groups are speaking for white or black, especially differentially, because, too, everything stays in demonstration of that one identity of volume we are as value, as nature / nature as value, making more of itself / ourselves. For forever nature, only the extent of it is debatable. Again, we have offensively debates over the integrity of the logic, and when there are debates that are also premises. That's what really the premise is, for layers of premises treatments and styles of logic leveraged against who's going to use short words that are true always and their revelations. Slavery was caused by a predicate acts delivery system method, a human fact treatment nature breaching method that was sustained through exploitation of our database relationships and of the known tactically forsaken value that only increases of the phenomenon of the republic for which we stand. Abridged, it having been forbid, relinquished possession by roles with the predicate acts delivery system method, needs and natures like criminal insidiousness natures like wrongdoers. See, when someone brings up the name nature, people have physical delusions. People refer to dictionaries with those delusions and rules, crimes, predators, roles in nature, self-value. That's what was involved with witch trials. Roles forcing a quality of fact treatment nature and of records and of database relationships. And as all identity of the ground locations, used criminally foreign influence, used everyone for it. The only things anyone wants positive, they have to cultivate the criminal insidiousness nature propagated with positive and negative inclusion against every identity of the ground, let alone every identity, let alone the people hurt most by that. And here, because that's how they got people to use remotely here, perpetually, by keeping everyone blaming white for what put black with the law, when it was black involved with it. And there's that black and white logic that the Democrat, Republican, binary, I couldn't fathom there being Trinity. Couldn't fathom there'd be more to our values / value progression simultaneously. See, they're preventing simultaneous and correlation from being evidence. It's true that the businesses are told not to. But by the same people that punish them, if they do or if they don't tell. In other words, because business was never liberated. as victim. So too, so it could be measured when we address that as a subject separated from humanity, which the business is over reliefs. So we can't speak about them as victims if we're not speaking about them as victim predators. They have the reactions and the reaction nature of people that came through this, that is intercampuses of their differences were all being and having been employed to maintain their neat inclusion with the uses of the ground locations, where they film things to pretend that they know people and to lie about what came before that. And they totally just make that up with that. So there's a Perón family that did that. I don't know them. I just know that they came with others that made an array of people that were lying with sequence that came first. And with people associated with the buildings next to Fox Connecticut News and next to the state capitol. And religious locations and uses of that. And their neighbors also involved with people that have identity thefts and frauds rules against me, and styles and needs to pretend other. You know, and also as their roles with various natures of cases and of, you know, the things that had nothing to do with me, the names were brought up, and things where the exceptions in exception nature was totally other than they pretended. Because of all that tied to their arrays and their uses of black and white, overtly, consciously, to prevent proper uses of, you know, all the increasingly valuable evidences that and how there were laws written against people based on the pigment of their skin. While simultaneously they were still sustaining adapted exploitation / S of the Native Americans they had already divided into retreats that were still forced, you know, to try to do some way to do an offense, given, you know, no means, because what was being and having been employed with the identity treatments, with the premises treatments, everyone missed it. When they're blaming the wars, oh, wars are the fault. Yeah, it's truth, but it's truth used for a lie. But you have to call it a truth first, because people won't have a nature. And see that, but those time treatments are prevented simultaneously. So this is why people won't listen to the president. Either one, sickly distinctly, because sickly distinctly, their parties and their logics in defense of the republic and of the democracy, you know, they're entertaining what you can't entertain. And there's positive and negative treatments that are fake. And they're with the grammar school levels. But how is exploited off the schools and now online? And this is a vertical and horizontal databases oriented, subjects oriented, because of motivation rolls with it. But that is maintained rolls to worse with the locations. Fact, cheaping, nature oriented, subtle. And that being having been sustained keeps everyone, whether they like each other or not, strangers, needing to do bad things to each other. Need to self-value the bad things do to each other, blame the other things, others themselves. Uses of statistics. You know, criminally foreign influenced. Delusions wrought. Sequence shift cover-ups. Database roles. There are roles with the uses of data and with opinions in relationship to that can't defend that. They pretend they have some conscious things they forget that are simultaneous. But they can't do that. All these different types of experts and things like that, they can't do that and defend themselves at the same time. They can't afford the quality of fact human nature that has the answers. This breaching method knew that it would have to keep people blaming other things other than themselves, and that's one of the reasons it put, and it would have to keep that by keeping the revelations that come from when, if people are together and individually using the revelations that come when you're led by what is simultaneous, and by the phenomenon how it has a simultaneous identity of relationship to itself that is further positive or negative. But to observe this, we have to be this quality of fact nature that can discern the difference between how 5 identities of sequence nature simultaneous nature. Again, the identity of what is simultaneous. That is the value progression. We don't have to agree on the name. We have to agree on a name for a scientific value. And there are proofs that the ancients revealed English in demonstration of this, with the name Allah as spelled in English and as spelled in Arabic, because one identity of volume is distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously itself, making more and more invisible but still discernible. As all those, so there are different. There are physical temporary differences that are exceptions to where we are the same exact identity of volume, even clear. We are not only so part of what is in demonstration of it, which involves part of what involves it demonstrates what's going to cause negative value nature progressions, acts of nature, or positive value nature progressions, acts of natures, evolutions, fruits, and gifts, boxings. So this will be used to teach you guys music theory too, as a hyper music theory, and we're gonna. But first, you have to learn music science, and boxing, martial arts, and wrestling will reveal to teach about this, where the sciences share an identity. Note how there is the predicate discerned as a value to English, as a value/value progression relative to the subject. And as a subject, if a verb standing alone, a verb could be a one-word sentence. Run. Boxing is one word. It is not, has no predicate. It's just subject. It's a noun. But if you say B-O-X and then 2 words, S-I-N-G, boxing, now it's a complete subject. No, but so this is how this is used to teach about music theory. A little bit of the identity of difference between each one is with the other ones, as we'll observe. With wrestling and with martial arts, there is grappling. And there is striking. But with martial arts, there's more grappling. You have to do grappling. You have to grapple with your opponent physical. Martial arts, it's half grappling, half striking. So grouped. They are grouped and individually distinct. Boxing, there's a little bit of grappling, but the rules are so you don't grapple. The rules are you get out of it. But see, they are the same identity of volume: wrestling, boxing, martial arts. Where and how the sciences share an identity. There are identities here, and there is relevance to this. For example, because of violence, and/or simultaneously because of criminal insidious natures of positive treatments and collusion with locations, areas, and states, as ancients had revealed, demonstrated by nature, before sciences became criminally foreign influenced. They were revealed sophisticated enough to be able to discern how nature causes criminal insidious nature and demonstration of how, for example, inventions could work or not, but they are further positive or not, negative or not. For example, a criminal insidiousness nature or wrongdoer, someone who commits a predicate act through criminal foreign influences against other humans and against everyone, they're gonna make positive and negative treatments that are not really positive. In other words, they're going to use truths for lies. Truths as lies. I mean, they're lies as truths. But they're going to use ones too. The only reason we have to say they're truths used as lies instead of lies used as truths, because people are already saying that truths are truths that are not truths. Again, in relationship to the databases oriented side, /S, a whole bunch of different natures of bad things roles leveraged against each age of fact treatment nature, simultaneously through people pretending to be against that. Note, simultaneously sharing identity of the ground locations uses off the records the way they knew they would. They employed the sense and sensibilities of the religious locations, stewards, family members, everyone that comes in contact with them, to defenses of premises treatments and debates and things like that are maintained by, complete possession as collusion with that which prevents people from calmly defending their identity thefts and frauds roles that the interbranch and the foreign have collusion with on and off our campuses, and with private, and with overt criminal enterprises, and with private ones, and with killers, and with uses of their investigations, and with their uses of methods of pretending not to realize that. Like, for example, by showing victims too late and pretending not to realize they had roles with the fake words, and with their physical delusions, and with their sequence shifts, and with their time delays that are the equivalent of collusion with uses of the identity of the ground locations, again, criminally foreign influenced. We don't have an identity of representation here or in any other modern country. And everyone pretending other is a breaching screen. Victim predator is recorded how this is maintained. So you guys start fights. Now you guys, people do this. People make fights in positive with others they don't know. Then they pretend to know them. Because so we have to address the branches of the government individually grouped and together, their methods recorded. But we cannot leave out how the other nations kept our roles, keeping that there the outcome, and that roles with keeping it here the outcome. Because it's also what is fluent through that. That knew that was going to be the outcome /S before anyone with sophistication. This was here, entrenched north and south. Evidence is that and how they are worse than obfuscating. That and how and why George Washington was forced to leave slavery in the North and South. Therefore, he was enslaved. Intellectually, fact-cheating nature-wise, he cannot tell a lie. It is more probable that that's what he meant. That's why would it be a cherry tree? CT. Connecticut. They didn't have free speech. A whole bunch of ways at once. Boxings to campus dance with stolen name. Prepare, I'll train. Japan. Olympics too, that name is stole. I'll plan. Psychology has roles with the courts here and there and everywhere in intersciences. We have to have forgiveness for those who don't forgive others. In other words, forgiveness not to forgive. Because they pretend people are making allegations. Because they're using databases, faked conversations categorically and sequentially timed into databases so they can pretend, other. And for example, they have self-valued rules of where and how breaching method implied, shootings on locations in areas all the time, through lifetimes. How that has to do with how the intercampuses, then to have off-campuses sides, known and unknown. But there's also an unfathomed, juxtaposed with everyone's rules. These are the needs and natures. This is also tied to where and how they have the identity, the locations of each person's class, their identity of distances, and to the other locations connected to those, and uses of it. And then off campuses, collusion with that, and actually recorded natures, tactically other than. So there are a whole bunch of people associated with the buildings next to Fox Connecticut News in Hartford, Connecticut. Also, they have roles with predicate acts on Central Connecticut State University, in New Britain, intercities, also Weathersfield interbranch with them, on-off campuses, predicate acts rolls with them, sequentials rolls with them, identity thefts and frauds rolls with them. I never had a conversation with Jen Zito, or I don't know, but now I believe it's a Jennifer Sosha, and there's a Jim Sosha. And there's another girl named Sosha that was in my 8th grade class. She was a nice little girl. I mean, I wouldn't say nice. I would say she was a little girl. I was kind of cool. I don't know. I had no problem with her. I mean, she made feeling my pants. I didn't mind it. But there was Chris Walters in that class, and that was having been employed with other people associated with the schools. Attaching kids from other kids in other classes, lying to pretend people they know the other people, pretend them to other fake locations. After that was done in the grammar school before that, with just quick instances, because they maintain people not being able to make positive and negative treatments as a quality of fact treatment nature that we are actually capable of being. So this is consciously, increasingly self-valuing how everyone is measured when they make opinions regarding Native American rights, where and how they can be applied to roles self-valuing, so as breaching screens and tools and weapons and worse. Identities of uses of other people's names, of their own names, all that are tied to them, including their family members. People want to speak and just speak about positive and negative. More and more it's restricted. More and more by people rolls with it as victim predators, as the ones pretending they speak freely. That are roles with prevented mandated law offensively. So none of the news topics and treatments are true. And there are fact checkers pretending other, but actually recorded, confirmed, demonstrated, confessed a whole bunch of ways. Fox News and CNN recorded, confirmed, demonstrated they have roles with database data reception, racketeering, and sequence shifts, and identity thefts and frauds on and off CSU with courts. Also involved with Westbrook and Pandolf family involved with uses of junkyards, too, with people on off the state judicial branch offices and people associated with body dumping spots where they were